Welcome to Twitch Tales, an interactive D&D game where I am the Dungeon Master and everyone in the Twitch chat is hive mind controlling the actions of one player, Apis Hive, a hill dwarf ranger. We started 83 episodes ago with Apis waking up in a forest, the Lannis Woods, I believe it is. There's a lot of forests around here, so I forget which one it is. Near a frontier town called Shadridge. Apis went into this town and upon buying a bunch of stuff that they needed, some more equipment and patching up their old tatty blanket and things like that from living in the woods as a ranger, they discovered that there was a problem with the mead from the mediary, and they headed out to that mediary and found that there was a dead person had been murdered. No, by goblins, no less. And they took it upon themselves as their first quest to go and investigate the goblin situation. After tracking down and killing the goblins, they freed a giant bee that was being kidnapped from this mediary. This giant bee became their companion and friend throughout the rest of the campaign, a giant bee called Mel. Apis had also just had a bad dream, let's say, a memory that was surfacing from several years before, where they had been one of the sole survivors of their village after a dragon attack by an old/ancient green dragon called Unguhef. Apis had vowed revenge and taken dragons as their favoured enemy. Apis went back to Shadridge with this bee in tow and the goblins dealt with, but on the way discovered a couple of elven villagers in the woods and helped the elves to rebuild after the goblin attack as well. After helping the elven villagers with individual problems that they were having, you headed back to Shadridge finally, and you discovered that there was some mystery abound with some people feeling a little bit old before their time, decrepit and weak, and dying of seemingly wasting disease. After a little investigation, Apis discovered that this was the work of a necromancer called Sally. Sally was chased out of town and unfortunately not defeated as she ran east of the Colton's farm and into the Great Expanse. Who knows what happened to her? Apis went back to town and was given a letter by the Knights of Kavosna, a law enforcement here in Shadridge, to go and take it to the nearby established town of Fondurg to say, hey, we're in desperate need of supplies and nothing has been getting through. Please let us, please help us out. And on the way, Apis got attacked by bandits. The bandits apparently were working for a manticore, so Apis dealt with that as well. Then eventually Apis headed to Fondurg. I suppose we should... Yeah, I suppose I'll go into the whole Sasquatch situation. After dealing with the manticore, Apis took the bandits, the now vindicated... that's not the right word. Liberated. After dealing with the manticore, Apis now took the liberated bandits and the loot that the bandits had stolen over the months back to Shadridge and said, hey look, a bunch of supplies and also some people that want to have an honest living. While they were there, it was the 1st of Altabris, the month to celebrate the god of the hunt, and as on the 1st of each month, the gods expect to be revered and worshipped in such a way as is befitting of their domain. So the god of the hunt had a menagerie being built in his name, and it was Apis's job to go out and hunt some cool exotic beasts to put into this menagerie in honor of the god of the hunt. Apis rolled so well on that hunt that they actually managed to find an incredibly rare Sasquatch, a Bigfoot type creature. And Apis managed to not only find and hunt this Sasquatch, but through some ingenious ideas, managed to actually converse with it and persuade it to come back on its own accord and climb down into a pit within this menagerie. It was incredible, and the god of the hunt was very impressed with you, as warranted, as demonstrated by the improvement of your hunter's mark the next morning. then you climbed down into the pit to try and hand feed it for inexplicable reasons, and almost died to it, and then let it loose, and it ran away again and never to be seen again. So, you take the good with the bad. Then you headed south to Fondurg, finally arriving at this town, this large established town to the south of Shedridge, only to discover that they were having some dragon problems. A green dragon had moved into the area, and as a ranger with a favoured enemy of dragons and a particular hatred for a green dragon, you took it upon yourself to go and find and fight this dragon. You fell into a trap of it because you underestimated how smart this green dragon was, and you were captured and taken as prisoner to its lair, where you met a bunch of its other prisoners, other trophies, living trophies as it was calling them. Working on a little bit of behind-the-scenes espionage kind of stuff for the next few days, you eventually managed to keep yourself and your fellow prisoners alive long enough that the King's Guard could turn up from wherever they happened to be and attack this green dragon, and you joined in the fight, and you got the final blow as it tried to fly away. And you killed the green dragon, who it had turned out was the son of Unguhef, the one that you'd vowed revenge on. He was old enough now, was Lucifric, that he had been forced to flee the nest before Unguhef and him had territorial issues, and found a new territory near Fondurg. And boy, how he wished he hadn't in the end. After freeing Fondurg from the Green Dragon, you decided to head back up to Shadridge to see what had been going on there in the time that you had been missing. Not a lot had been going on in Shadridge, but once you headed up into the woods north of Shadridge, into what is the beginning of what's called the Great Expanse, you discovered that there was some problems going on, some problems afoot in the increasing sightings of demons and undead nature. There's some blights, some vampire plants, some undead plants, and some nasty situations where bodies had been torn apart. When you got back to Shadridge after dealing with the whole Lucifric thing, you met up with an old friend, Mosh, who turned out was a werefox, but trying to keep that a secret. Mosh admitted in this moment to having killed someone at the last full moon. He lost control of his werefox form and fears that he killed someone. To not jump to conclusions, to try and get the information that you needed to make a proper informed decision about what to do here, you asked or persuaded Mosh to come with you to the site of the attack and show you what happened, essentially. Upon investigating the site, the crime scene as it were, you concluded that he hadn't actually killed anybody. There was no body parts left behind. There was no chance that he'd killed anybody. He definitely attacked somebody. There was lots of blood, but there was a good chance that the person he attacked survived. This was very little in the way of assuaging Mosh's doubts, however, because he knows that if he did attack somebody and they survived, there's a very good chance they are infected with the werefox curse and may not even survive the transformation. And if they do, they will live a half-life, a cursed life. So you followed the tracks, and this is when you started to discover that there was a lot of demons in the area as well. Lots of demons and necromantic magics, and basically the Great Expanse is not doing well. There's something going on here. Using your abilities as a Horizon Walker Ranger, somebody who has a tie to the planes and planar magic, you discovered that there is a portal to one of the demon planes in the abyss, open to the northwest of where you are, in a sort of the mountain, the lone mountain that is in the middle of this Great Expanse. Deciding that you finally needed to take up an archfey, the Merry Gentleman, on his incessant pleading that you should come and visit him and learn some things about the world, you had put him off for long enough that eventually this was overdue time to go and visit him. So you used your powers to find the portal, the nearest portal to the Feywild, and you went to visit him on the Fey Plain. You didn't immediately remember your time in the Feywild. You having stepped from your perspective, having stepped immediately from the material plane back to the material plane, only with the seasons being completely different and your clothing being different, you forgot a lot of it. But you eventually just got your memories back. So we'll jump back to you entering the Feywilds, where you discovered this place is weird. It is full of bizarre and charming and crazy creatures and monsters and customs that you weren't used to, and you had to have a crash course in. Firstly, you met some flying dragon-like creature that was known as an earworm that used songs to charm and frighten and attack you. You also met an Eladrin that's sort of elven-like, but more magical, I suppose. You then eventually, after a quick ride inside of a giant fish that was giving you riddles, you eventually met with an elven fey hunter who showed you the way to this archfey's mansion via a mountain range. You eventually got to the Merry Gentleman's abode and met with him. You learned a little more about the portal situation and your abilities as a Horizon Walker. You did some training. You learned about the other Fey that run the Feywild, the Archfey Council. You even had dinner with one of the Archfeys and the Merry Gentleman, a dinner wherein she expressed a great interest in you as a mortal planer. As someone from the material plane. She showed a great interest in you to the point where she cut you to see if you bled and then healed you again and thought it was fine. She was very odd and disconcerting at the very least. You met a centaur who trained you in the arts of being a fighter and multiclassed into fighter, 2 levels of fighter, 5 levels of ranger now. And then, as you were preparing to leave the Feywild, the Merry Gentleman definitely gave you a plant suit to take with you. Basically, a living armor, called a spell of my own creation called Verdant Armor, that I made in conjunction with a good friend Seed when he was playing in my game. Well, Seed is the name of his character. James is the player that actually came up with the spell with me. And the Merry Gentleman cast this on you, gave you this spell, this green armor, and then sent you through the portal to the material plane, wherein you lost all of your memories of your time in the Feywild and arrived back on the plane with nothing but a note in your hand from the Merry Gentleman saying, "Find Seed, find the Drenvale. I need your help fixing the Sentinels." You stumbled around the woods for a while, losing your memories, and something about this wood was actively trying to make you forget the purpose of why you were there. You kept having to remind yourself via looking at the note of the reason for your being here. Eventually you found a giant owl made of wind that tried to scare you away until you mentioned that you were here on behalf of the Merry Gentleman, at which point this owl dropped back into a humanoid form, that of a sort of hermit elf, and introduced himself as Seed, the guardian of the village Drenvale. And he took you back to the Drenvale. You get introduced to another guardian of this village, a unicorn called Julius, and between Julius and Seed, they have been trying their best to fix up a series of statues, for want of a better word, devices that were created from days of old by an ancient, long-forgotten race of elves that used to live in this village and protect the Dren tree, a gigantic tree at the heart of this village that serves as a sort of plug and anchor point for all of the different planes to keep them separated and to keep them from blending into each other too much. The Sentinels protect the village and the tree, and protect the plane from the influence of too much influence from other planes as well. But recently, over the years, they have been abandoned and forgotten and destroyed and broken down. And Julius and Seed are trying to fix them up. but a little at a time. And you've been sent to try and help out with that. During the fixing of these various sentinels, Seed introduced you to the Earth Sentinel, a huge hill-like mound that is in the form of a supine elf, and its purpose was to reduce the crazy interactions between this plane and the plane of Earth. Once it is actually up and running and working properly, then the borders and portals between this plane and the plane of Earth should be a little bit more solid, a little bit easier to define, and so people are less likely to just accidentally find themselves from one place to the next. In order to fix this Earth Sentinel, though, the ground itself had been poisoned and corrupted over time, and you, having realised the purpose of your plant suit that you were gifted by the Merry Gentleman, you allowed it to take root on this earth, and it acted like a filter, sucking out the toxins of the ground and making the Earth Sentinel healthy once more. At this point, it was really bothering Apis that they could not remember their time in the Feywild, and so they decided to ask Seed if there was anything that they could do. Seed did not know of any memory-altering magics, but did know of a small group, a small society nearby that could. A society of, a colony, I suppose is a better word, of fungal creatures, myconids. And so Seed took Apis to the myconids, these mushroom men, and asked if there was anything you could do. They said, indeed there is. We have a melding sort of ceremony where we blend our memories together, and we can help each other remember certain things. And so, in a bit of trading and you doing a little job for them and almost dying to a cyclopede at the time, and eventually you returned with the fungus needed for this ritual. And upon burning this incense and this fungus, you were knocked into a sort of shared fever dream and were returned of your memories of the time in the Feywild. In particular, the last thing you remember is just as you were stepping through the portal, you thought to ask the Merry Gentleman, "Do you know my mother?" And the Merry Gentleman replied, "Of course, she's one of my champions." So this was a recap of the Apis story so far. When you've caught up, you can join us live over on twitch.tv/Robert Hartley GM.